Hi students, this week we're going to talk a little bit about client-side libraries in .NET MVC. So essentially what a client-side library is, it's libraries that we're going to work with of code that we can use to display our web page. They're going to be things like JavaScript libraries, CSS libraries that are out there, a popular one called Bootstrap, and Bootstrap also has things embedded for JavaScript as well. And we're going to use those libraries to make our lives easier when building our user interfaces on the front end. So the first thing I'm going to do is open our application from last week, and we're going to figure out how we're going to add these and work with these client-side libraries. So let me find my application from last week. I believe it's under Core Apps, Code. All right, so here's future value. I'm going to go ahead and open it in Visual Studio because the way we do this in Visual Studio is quite honestly just easier than the way we do it in Visual Studio Code. So if we go here to this www root folder, if we remember, this is the folder that keeps all of our different things that we use for our client-side libraries, essentially. It's where all of our custom style sheets go, where all of our custom JavaScript goes, as well as all of the custom client-side the client-side libraries that we're going to import here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and add in a folder with the name lib. Okay, it looks like there's already a folder called lib in here. Am I just missing it? I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. Let me go ahead and show all files. Okay, yeah, so it looks like this lib folder is already here. So let me go ahead and add this. I'm going to include this in my project so it doesn't continue to be hidden. So if you don't see it here, what you can do with any file in your project that you don't see here, you can come to the top of the screen and show all files. So it kind of tries to hide some of the files that you might not need to see, and for some reason it didn't think we needed to see this library file. But for the sake of this part of the task, I went ahead and made that visible. So I right-clicked and said included in my project. So you can see if you want to exclude it from your project, it doesn't delete the file, it just pretty much makes it hidden from your project. So I'm going to go ahead and try to import a library from here. So if I right-click on my www root folder, I should be able to add a client-side library. And you can see from here different providers we can use. The main provider is the CDNJS, which is a library provider online that we use to download client-side libraries for .NET. You can set a target location, so the target location I want to be www.rootlib. And then which library would you like to install? So it's not showing me any libraries. Not sure why it's not showing me any libraries. Okay, so it looks like if I type in jQuery, so I want the jQuery library in this folder, so I'm going to click jQuery, and then it shows me the most current version of jQuery and all the files that will be installed if I go ahead and accept this. So I'm going to click this. I want jQuery. I'm just going to go ahead and click install. I'm going to click all files. I wonder what's included in source. Let me go ahead and deselect all files. I just want this. Okay, I see what I did wrong here. I accidentally left the wrong one in the drop-down, so that was my fault. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to go to CDNJS, and then when I type in jQuery, it'll then give me the jQuery library that I can then install. So these are all of the jQuery files that I want to install. I want to install them here, and then I should be able to put /jQuery, click install, and then you can see it finished. So it installed all of the jQuery libraries, and it installed it in this jQuery folder here. So that's how you do this in Visual Studio. It's not too bad. It gives you a nice little user interface. So let's go and try to do this now in Visual Studio Code that quite honestly isn't as intuitive, but it's still not too bad once you know what you're doing. So let me go ahead. I want to delete the jQuery one we just made here. Well, actually what we can do is we can just go to this libman.json and clean client-side libraries, and then that'll get rid of that for us. So then if we go to this libman.json, it essentially shows us what version of this libman, which is library manager, we're using, what provider we're using, which like I said was this CDN.js, and then which libraries you have installed, which you can see I just uninstalled that one. I'm going to go ahead and delete this out of my libman.json. I'm going to close out of this. I might just delete this altogether. Okay, so now we're back to a point where we don't have any client-side libraries installed. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, let's go over and jump over in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to exit out of this. Sure, you can save. So here's my future value application. I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code now. Okay, so now here we're back at the same point. We have this www root folder. I want to minimize some of the stuff I'm not using. So I'm going to exit out of this welcome screen. So now we can see that I have these folders. It doesn't look like it left me with that lib folder again. I don't know why it loves getting rid of that lib folder. So let's go ahead and start new folder, lib. All right, so now I have a lib folder again that's empty. So now I want to add client-side libraries to this. And if you haven't guessed it already how we have to do this, we have to do it via the command line. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the terminal. If you don't remember how to open up the terminal, you can do it a couple different ways. I'm going to do it, you can do it up here with terminal, new terminal, or Control-Shift-tilde. Control-Shift-tilde. And that opens up this terminal here. So then what we need to do is we need to add an extension on to my .NET CLI. So if we go here, we can see ways that we can add extensions onto our .NET CLI is we can include to install this Libman CLI with our .NET CLI. So we can use the .NET Core CLI, .NET Tool install. So if we go .NET Tool-help, you can see we can use this to install different tools within our .NET environment or our .NET CLI. So I'm going to go ahead and do .NET Tool install. If we go back again, we could just copy this whole thing, or we can install, this is installed globally, so we want to install throughout our entire .NET CLI, or our entire .NET CLI distribution we have installed. If you don't include -version, it'll just include the most recent version, so I'm just going to leave that off. So I'm going to include Microsoft Web Library Manager CLI. So -g microsoft.web.library-manager.cli. And you can see that it's already installed. So I already installed this previous to this video to work with it a little bit. So I already have it installed, but if you didn't have it installed, it would go through and start installing the CLI, and then you'd be able to use it. So then once you have the CLI installed, what you can do is you noticed we had that libman.json, which essentially keeps track of all of the different client-side libraries we have installed in our code. So what we can do is first I want to cd into the folder that I want that libman.json. If you remember, we had that file within the root of this future values project, which is our web project. So if I say cd into future values /future value, I believe this is where we had the libman So if I do a dir, it should show me, yep, this is where we had it installed. I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to say libman init, and that'll initialize a new libman.json file within our project here in the root of our project. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me what the default provider is, and you can see that it tells me what it'll be if I don't give it one. So if I just hit enter, it'll just give me that default provider, which is what I want anyways. And then you didn't see it because it happened so fast probably, but now you can see a libman.json file over here. And you can see it has the version, the default provider of the CD and NJS where we want to get all of the repository where we want to get all of them. And you can see we have an empty list of libraries here. So we want to start installing libraries in our libman.js file. So what we can do is continue to use this libman CLI and say libman install jQuery, and then we can give it a path that we'd like to have jQuery installed. So if we look back, actually let's just do libman install help, and it should give us exactly how we can use this. So we can give it a provider, which you already gave it a provider, so we don't need that. But what we can do is give it a destination that we want to put it. And we can even give it the exact files that we want. So maybe we just want the minified version of jQuery, which we'll talk about later and what that means. So what I want to do is libman install, and remember I want to install this in the lib folder of www.root, and that's not currently where I am in here. Right now I'm in the future value project. So if I want to, I need to do libman install jQuery, and since I don't give it a version, it'll give me the most recent version. And I want to install it on the destination of www.root lib and jQuery. So I want to put it in a jQuery folder. So now if I hit enter, we can see that it added this line here. So I want to click save, and then you can see in this library, now I have a jQuery folder that has all of those jQuery files in it. So I want to go ahead and exit out of this so it doesn't try to overwrite it while it's open. I'm going to just hit the up arrow because I'm going to install more than one thing here. So another one I want to install is Twitter Bootstrap. So this is just a regular Bootstrap download. And I want to put that in a Bootstrap folder. Okay, so now if we go to lib, now we should have a jQuery and a Bootstrap, and we do, and I can hit the up arrow again. So that gives us our Bootstrap installation. I'm going to do popper.js, and I want to put that in a popper folder. Hit the up arrow again. Two more I'm going to install is jQuery validate and jQuery validation unobtrusive. So I can do jQuery validate. I want to put that in a jQuery validate folder. jQuery validate. And then last but not least, I'm going to do a jQuery validation unobtrusive. So this is a library that allows us to write some client-side jQuery validation instead of doing like those required attributes. You can make them work in tandem, and we'll end up doing that. But that's what this library does, unobtrusive. Unobtrusive. Okay, that looks correct. If not, it'll yell at me. Okay, so now we have popper, jQuery validation unobtrusive, jQuery validate, jQuery, Bootstrap, all in this library here. And here's our libman.js file now with all of those libraries. So this is how we're going to manage client-side libraries in .NET Core MVC. It's very easy. You can see it's a lot easier in Visual Studio, but once you get used to it, using the command line interface for Visual Studio Code, it's not as bad. So That should give you a little bit of a hint as to how to get started on Chapter 3. The next video will cover how we're going to include all of these in our project and start writing better user interfaces for our web project. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.